Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Max's Man Cave. This evening is a very special episode. I've got a host of panelists with me, some familiar faces, some faces we haven't seen in many fortnights. So it's really good to have these guys on here. And these are, by all intents and purposes, experts in their field of Lord of the Rings. So when I ask everyone what their favorite part of the film is of Return of the King, everyone should be able to theoretically answer that question. But no. We've got one on the panel who hasn't seen it yet, but that's totally fine because he wanted to join.
I fell asleep.
Oh, that's right. Even almost worse, which is like
yeah, the equivalent.
I'd be more embarrassed to say I fell asleep during this movie than falling asleep having sex. I'm just gonna say that this movie is arguably better than sex sometimes. Let's be honest.
Like, yeah, if you were given the choice between like your girlfriend goes like, "Hey, it's our anniversary," or we watch Lord of the Rings, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of torn here. I don't know, but
I'll meet you in the middle. Can you do both at the same time?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay,
I know just the positions that we can both watch it together.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna ride for Rohan. Let's go.
There we go. Now we're talking.
Rider for Rohan.
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Well, I'm really looking forward to going over some of our favorite moments and just what this meant to us personally, and then just kind of going over the film in general. But for those of you who don't know, this is the 20th anniversary of the Return of the King, of the, in my opinion, the best trilogy ever made. Maybe some of the best films ever made in cinema history. And it's weird to think that these are 20 years old at this point, and yet they still hold up. If anything, they get better with time. Yeah. They age like fine wine, which is really, really great to see. And they continue to only get better. But yeah, so on this day was the actual release date in theaters 20 years ago. And that's why this is so cool that we get to do this evening. That is the exact date, December 17th, 2003, that this was released. So I'll kind of go around the horn. Dolan, I know that you don't really have a favorite scene necessarily, right?
Well, so if anything, I'm going to be that good counterbalance, in the chat, and on the panel. Like you bring up something like you and Kyle behind the scenes are mentioning some lines from the film. I'm like, I have no clue what you guys are talking about, but so this will be fun. I'll just provide excuse me, why does this make sense? Why is this going on here? So yeah, it'll be fun.
Good. Well, yeah, and I do like the Festivus pole behind you. I just realized. Yep. I just noticed that.
Yep.
So
exactly. Yep, right back there. No tinsel, too distracting. Just leaning against the wall. Perfect.
And thank you, Salty. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you guys do enjoy this stream, if you guys are enjoying your time here, please hit the like button and comment down below some of your favorite scenes. Now, Kyle, you normally don't show up on our Sunday evenings, so it's super rad to have you on. But what's your favorite scene from this film in particular? Not the whole series, but just Return of the King.
I have a lot. I mean, it's a long movie, and that's like asking who your favorite kid is sometimes, or what's your favorite movie of all time. It's like
right.
It changes. It's a lot. I mean, you could easily say the Battle of Minas Tirith, just all of it, but that's more than one scene. I personally, the older I've gotten and the more that I've watched it, I love the dialogue between Gandalf and Pippin when Minas Tirith is, they're almost accepting death at that point. And Gandalf is explaining to Pippin, like, no, this isn't the end. Like, you think this is the end? No, it's just the journey. It's just the beginning. And he explains what happens later on after you die. And it's like, and Pippin's like, it doesn't sound so bad. And he's like, no, it doesn't. I just, it's more poignant. The older you get, the more I appreciate that conversation.
It almost seems Shakespearean or very Tolkienian, I would say.
Yes.
And it really is like, it's so difficult to get that type of dialogue because it's such a hard juxtaposition, right? Like you're watching utter hell break loose on Pelennor Fields, And right before Gandalf is giving this speech to Pippin, there's a cave troll, like literally banging down the door. Here it is. And yet you get this brief moment of just human emotion, and it's just perfect. And what's his name? Ian McKellen could not have delivered the lines more perfect. It's just beautiful. So, but I love that, man. I think that's a great scene to choose. Yeah. As we kind of go through this, and then I do enjoy the little nod he gives when it's like, okay, they're about to break through. Gandalf just kind of gives him the nod. Are you ready? You know?
Yep.
Oh, love it. Josh, do you have a favorite film or a favorite scene from the film?
I'm gonna go back to when I saw this in theaters because I hadn't read the books. But when Aragorn rides in with the army of the dead, I remember I distinctly remember being like, "That's so fucking badass." And it just, for me, that's like the portals opening in Endgame, but before that ever happened in Endgame. So I don't know, something about that. And look, I'm a softie, so I love when you think Samwise is gone and he hasn't. He comes back to save Frodo. I'm just like, fuck yeah, good friendship.
Yeah, this is so when Aragorn shows up. I think this is when Gimli says, "May the best dwarf win," I think is the line. There's plenty for the both of us. May the best dwarf win. This was just it's such a heroic type of scene where like the music swells, the army follows our king, right, who now has Anduril. He's finally taken up his rightful ownership of the name king, and is now using the sword for the first time, I think, in battle. And the faces of these guys right after he charges, and they are scared shitless.
Oh yeah,
they're like, "What the fuck are you?" I thought it was just the three of y'all. So, I think Mahler and Gary called the middle orc head on head guy or something like that. Something dumb, because he does have a head on his head.
He does have a head on a head.
Yeah,
he's got an apish look to his head with another head on top of it.
Yeah, no, it's pretty creepy. Some of these guys still creep the hell out of me. And then Josh, you said there was another the one at the very end where they're at Mount Doom.
I mean, it's not even like a specific moment. It's just the level of friendship and sacrifice that Samwise is willing to make for Frodo. The fact that Frodo's been, kind of overtaken by the ring, tell Sam to leave because Gollum's kind of like gotten in his head that Sam is wanting the ring and everything. So like Sam leaves and you just kind of like, damn. But then the fact that he does come back and he's like, absolutely not. So it's more so the overarching journey that they have together and how it culminates. But so I can't really pin it down to a specific moment. But
no, that's
my
fair.
point is the idea that we have that type of loyalty, that type of friendship shown is nice to see.
I think one of the best moments of that is when we realize that Sam is coming back for Frodo is right here.
Yeah.
And he's holding up, it is literal physical light against darkness, right? And that's such a cool visual to see of Samwise the Brave holding light against the dark in order to save his friend. When he's the least of us, he's the smallest one among us, and he's like, "Get the fuck away from him, you bitch!" It's very very heroic, as one might say. So great scene where he comes back for his good friend. Salty, my man. Now, for those of you who don't know, Salty Texas C has a channel of his own. Same with Josh. They both have channels, and I've linked their channels down below in the description. So if you guys want to follow these guys, please go hit that subscribe button. But yeah, Salty, what is your favorite scene or scenes?
I'm going to echo what the other panelists said. There's so many to choose from, but the first one that comes to my mind, and I remember seeing it in the theater, and every time I watch it on 4K, Blu-ray, it still looks amazing, and it's the beacons are lit.
Oh,
When it's just, once they get the fire going, and then the music rises, the Howard Shore score rises, and you watch through the night on all of these mountaintops for thousands of miles, these fires just springing up to life, and then finally we end up in Rohan with Aragorn sitting on the porch there, and he's eating, and he sees the fire on the mountain, and he throws down his bowl and then bursts through the doors and says the beacons are lit, and basically says, Gondor calls for aid. What is your answer? And then that moment, and Gondor answers. It's just one of the most powerful scenes to me, I think, in the movie, cinematically, and also I think emotionally. I think that's absolutely beautiful. And then of course I'm really partial to when after the battle of Minas Tirith, when they're all marching to the walls of Mordor, and you see the power of Sauron affecting Aragorn, and there's that moment of wavering where you wonder, obviously you've read the book, what the hell's going to happen, but the audience has to wonder what's going to happen, and then Aragorn beats it, this thing that, according to the narrative within the Jackson films, he's been struggling with his whole life, running from who he is, and then he just turns with his sword and runs, has the king way ahead of his army, the first one in to kill the evil, and then the army has to catch up with him, and it's brilliant, just brilliant scenes.
You're giving me chills as you explain it, because it really is like it's the quintessential moment that, and like you said, because in the books, Aragorn's journey is a little bit different. He's not so much running from his what would you call it? His
destiny.
Legacy. Yeah, his destiny.
Legacy.
Yeah. He's not so much running from it. Whereas this one, he there's that juxtaposition, and there's that struggle between, am I Strider, the Ranger, or am I Aragorn, son of Arathorn, the king? He's trying to decipher which one he takes the mantle of, and he doubts himself. He wonders, am I really worthy of this? And in that moment where he just turns with tears in his eyes, and he just says, for Frodo, it is him taking up the mantle and finally recognizing, as king, the only way to destroy this evil is to rush into unspeakable odds of, but yeah, this scene, I think the reason why this scene sticks out so much is the score. The score is the best thing about this whole thing. It's just
watch it.
I want to play it, but I know that we will be swiftly struck with many copyrights. So for now, I'll just kind of show stills of it. But it is quite the scene where I think Jackson was most likely in helicopters the entire time, going around, New Zealand, and just like filming these beautiful landscapes, and probably later, I think in post, added the CGI, maybe some CGI outposts or CGI fire. But for the most part, I feel like a lot of this is practical. But I don't know. I need to go back and rewatch the. I mean, like that. There's no way that's CGI. That's all real, right?
It gives me chills now. I mean, we're talking about stuff that's 20 years old to the day. And and I've watched 2 seasons of Wheel of Time, and that show had $10 million per an episode.
Wow.
Per an episode. And I just did a video with Prophet of the Dragon where they were throwing up their VFX for season 2, and it was trash. You know what I mean? And I even made the analogy on the live show, talking about these movies and talking about these effects from 20 years ago look so much better, and it's not rose-colored glasses. Actually, and Max, I think you're right. With every passing piece of shit movie that comes out, or every terrible woke, agendified, identity politic crap that we get, it just, you look at these movies, and it is the story that made them. and the
Mhm.
effects were quite literally the frosting on the top. And now we live in a world where it's like 4 inches of frosting, no cake to any of our fantasy, but that that frosting tastes terrible, and it just tastes like
Mhm.
it doesn't taste right, and it's full of artificial things. And this movie feels so organic and so human, and I think that's why, for me at least, why I revel in it, you know?
And you know what's so interesting is to Oh, sorry, go ahead, Josh.
No, I was just gonna say, and we all know we want some cake in our fantasies.
If that cake is, yeah,
Cake.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. Um, I will say if we are on the same, if we're on the same metaphor as the cake, I do think it is interesting that we're getting a much larger cake that costs more to make, that tastes worse, that has worse like ingredients in it, and
Mhm.
that will preach that it's doing something great for you. You know, that you're eating like all the sugary, all this stuff that's gonna like not really benefit you at all. It's not very healthy. It costs way more. That cake is going to be 3 times the amount that you would pay for, something else. And yet the owner and the manufacturer will say, "Oh, if you don't like our cake, then you're the problem." It's
Yeah.
like, oh.
Yeah.
So
Don't you like your cake in the shape of a black amputee communist trans whatever? Because you're a bigot if you don't want to eat our artificial sweetener, artificial vanilla, artificial everything, with
Right.
GMO ingredients. And that's kind of what it is. Is our bodies and our souls and our psyches can tell the difference between something artificial manufactured and what's real. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
The cake that grandma made back in the day. I mean, I'm 53 years old. I'm old as hell. Even the food that we had back then, the ingredients were much different. Now you look on those boxes, what the hell's in there? It's like a science, project, and it's
Yeah.
bioengineered. And that's the same way our entertainment is. And they've infiltrated science fiction, fantasy, and all this other stuff. So when you find something good that's out there and you love it, please share it with other people. Please,
Yeah.
because I don't know, are we ever going to get another trilogy like this? I don't think so.
Hey,
And
hey,
that's-
hey, hey! We
Oh.
still have the third Marvel's film that will eventually come out.
Oh my god.
And
We have the
Aquaman
50
2.
trilogy.
Everybody,
Yeah.
Aquaman 2.
I can
It's
only
here.
hope, right? For at least for our channel's sake, but
We have the
No,
50 Shades trilogy. Yeah, we can't discount that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's
I
a
got
thing. I had no idea.
5 years of Doctor Who. You think I'm going to watch every episode of that? You're nuts. I'm just going to say
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Now, that is actually a great question that you bring up. What is kind of the future of Lord of the Rings, and what is the future of Hollywood? Because, like, I would say that we're never going to get anything like this again. But that's me kind of taking the black pill and being very cynical, because there have been tons of course corrections throughout Hollywood's years that it's been around, decades that it's been around, much longer than I've even been alive. Much longer than I've even been cognizant of being alive, And so I maybe it's just because of my limited time here on Earth. But I don't know. I don't right now, I don't see this ever happening again. Do you guys feel like this could be something that could happen again? Not necessarily with Lord of the Rings, but just with any franchise, whether it's Warhammer 40K or comic books, if comic books come back around, video games. I think it would have to take someone really special.
I will say from a production standpoint, what made the Lord of the Rings successful, I'll say at least, was that they had New Line Cinema, and they had Bob Shea, more or less the one figurehead, pretty much the guy is saying, Peter Jackson, you do your thing. I'm gonna let you make
Mhm.
you want to make 2 films,
Creative
let's make it 3 films.
Complete
And
creative control. Yeah.
creative control, and that is what a lot of studios, production houses will not really do anymore. They don't want that, and I think that those days of having creative control are long gone now, and it would take a lot of courage for a production house to do that now, which I don't know if we have that.
Well,
even
Matt,
go ahead.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No,
I was going to say, even outside of the whole production aspect of it, it's also the reality that you have Peter Jackson respecting the source material, and instead of approaching it saying, what are we going to do to subvert expectations because people know the story, him recognizing this story is perfect how it is,
Mm.
how do we translate this as best as possible, like scene for scene, and even if it's not scene for scene, but keeping the same theme or feeling or I guess plot progression there, so you don't feel like you're escaping what was there before.
Yeah.
That's
As far as
yeah.
go ahead, sorry, Max.
Oh no, you're good, Salty. I know you wanted to say something earlier. Go ahead, brother.
I was going to say, Max, you and I talked about it like on one of my Tuesday shows where the interference, this was shopped to Harvey Weinstein. And Harvey Weinstein was ready to back it, but he had to have all this control. He wanted 2 movies, not 3. Wanted the movies to be hard R, wanted to kill off more hobbits, wanted to, make it like Pulp Fiction in Middle Earth, essentially, because he's Harvey freaking Weinstein. And I think that stuff happens, like Drews talks about, a lot more times than we want to realize, probably especially with a young screenwriter who's got a great idea and they gave him a big check. Who's he to fight? Going to play ball so he can get his next thing made, and then we end up in this situation where, because of DIE and all this other horse shit that's been going on for 10 years in ESG, these entertainment companies, Disney, I think primarily, is so infiltrated with these ideologues who are not there because they're capable, but because they were hired by people who hired them for their ideology. Does anybody know how to do anything like resembles making film? And that's kind of how it feels these days.
And that is kind of the on the Harvey Weinstein thing. Allegedly, and I can't say this for sure, but my sources in the field say that Jackson actually portrayed an orc in the series, in his film series, as Harvey Weinstein, and created his likeness onto this orc's face. I don't know if that is true or not, but like I said, it's allegedly, and I just think that's brilliant if that's the case, though. I think that's very funny.
I can't think of the orc's name, but it's like the orc leader that's in battle. Look, it's the ugly motherfucking orc, and orcs are already ugly, so to say the ugly motherfucking orc,
yeah. And the one that's outside of the towers at Helm's Deep, that's what I think that the head shape looks like Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah. And so, but to your point about, these individuals who are being hired right now for Disney and for, for Warner Brothers and stuff, it begs the question, is what they're producing now, is their own viewpoint of the world, because they're kind of closed off from experiencing, as Kyle would say, like touching grass, right? And actually experiencing life and experiencing the world. Does that viewpoint hinder their creative process? And I 100% believe it does, because so much of these films in like the early 2000s, in the 90s, even in the 80s, or especially in the 80s, it's a lot of good versus evil, and it's very clear who is evil, very clear who is good. And now it's this, like, now we're almost rooting for the bad guys, because the bad guys have worldviews and ideologies that I'm thinking, wow, shouldn't those be moralistic things? Like, why is he the one that we're supposed to root against, And like Galadriel in this Rings of Power show, she's awful. She's so insufferable, and she's the worst, and we're supposed to root for her. And so that's why what you were saying, Salty, of like a lot of these executives, I don't necessarily think that they have the capability of the creative process, because their ideology, is in the way of that, I guess you could say. So,
yeah, I mean, what you just described is the exact same thing, not to make it about Wheel of Time, but they took the female character who was a supporting character, and in no study guides, including the 20-year-old book, the dictionary, has this character ever been described as a primary character. And they hired Rosamund Pike, and then had to turn the show into the Rosamund Pike show, and then they turned her gay, and then she has a black girlfriend. It's like every single trope within this thing of everything, it was in Wheel of Time. And it's just, I don't know what it is, why they have such a hard on for fantasy. I mean, look at the devastation we've had to endure. Look at The Witcher. That was a steep decline into the hottest fires of woke hell. Then you got Willow. That was so successful, it's a tax write-off now. I mean, all these shows, right? I mean,
took it off of Disney.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the new Snyder thing. I mean, Snyder's contentious as hell, and I am no Snyder fanboy at all. But I really wonder if it's worth watching. You know, I did see something really cool. And we should talk about it at the end of the show. I found some really good fantasy, and it's new.
Ooh.
So yeah.
Maybe some bande dessinée, I think it's called, the European comics like Elric and stuff like that.
Well, this is a full length animated movie that uses rotoscope and is an homage to Ralph Bakshi.
Oh, that's cool.
interesting.
Okay, very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Anyway, I don't want to derail, but we should talk about it.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, for sure. What were you going to say, Josh?
I was going to say another thing I was going to say too, specifically on Lord of the Rings and will we ever get anything like this? My thoughts are no. I don't think we will, and it's for a couple of reasons. I do think our trend in how we deal with films and write films is different now, and I think too, you know, Hollywood has changed where they're more willing to make something a series versus a series of films. But beyond that, you know, I think we have to look at how people write and the materials they consume to make them want to be writers. And what I mean by that is, you know, these books were published, I think, in the 50s, I believe. Is that right? Maybe.
Say that one more time. These films?
The books.
Yeah.
The books, I
the
think, were
books.
published in the 50s.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the people that are writing today, that are in Hollywood today, they tend to have only graduated high school, if that, and then we know that people graduating high school have a 4th grade reading level.
This is true.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not trying to be like an asshole, and I know it's not everybody, but it's a chunk of the people
majority.
that are going out into the world now writing things. Like
And
what their
the thing
idea of
about-
what a good story is insane.
You know, Tolkien wrote The Hobbit. I think it was in 32 or 35. And then it was in 1957 when The Fellowship came out. And I think the following year was The Two Towers. I think I'm real close on that one because of all the videos I did around the Rings of Power. I think I remember that. But, you know, you're talking about somebody who completed arguably the masterwork of fantasy. Like he could have stopped with The Hobbit, right? And just, that's it. Hit my home run. I'm just going to be cool and do my thing, right? No, the dude comes out and gives us a whole other experience, you know, with even more complex characters. And I love The Hobbit. I absolutely do. I just reread it for the first time in years. And I found myself being struck by, you know, again, not that we're going to trash what Jackson did with The Hobbit. We're not going to do that. But there's so much unexplored territory within that book that if somebody ever got this that actually cared and ran a benevolent dictatorship, you know, and did not allow the studio executives to do anything but collect the very large checks from how much money somebody doing it faithfully and competent would do. I mean, there's so much out there. Somebody could really do that, or maybe even do it as a miniseries, but it could never be with Netflix, Amazon, maybe HBO, but man, you can't do it because these entertainment organizations exist to indoctrinate and to spread propaganda.
Yeah, I wonder if it may take like a separate production company, like something that's small now that's going to get larger and larger. Because like when you look at New Line was the house that Freddie built. I mean, New Line was really nothing until Nightmare on Elm Street came along and made them millions. And thanks to Friday the 13th, I mean, we wouldn't have gotten Lord of the Rings without Freddie. So I do think it is pretty interesting, the fact that this like little production company was like, yeah, we'll give you the money to make this epic, you know, thing. But for $2, Lane Kramer, he says, for me, the Witch King poning Gandalf, it's his hour. Oh, come on, Lane. I think the one you're talking about is when they are on the they're on kind of in the courtyard where the Witch King finally finds Gandalf and like makes his staff explode, and like Pippin gets reeled back on the horse and everything, and it's an intense scene. But thank you for the $2, Lane. And because we're talking about Lord of the Rings,
I bid you stand, men of the West.
That's so good.
Thank you, sir. I completely, I'm very grateful for your $2. And no, I disagree. I love your take. It's always interesting to hear like what people's favorite moments are and what they remember. I was gonna say, I think for me, the moment that at least I remember the most, and one of the moments that I tear up every single time, and I wish that I was more of a man to say, no, I definitely don't have something in my eye, but I don't. I think it is just the fear that, because when you think of this scene, I mean, right now it looks like a Renaissance painting, right? And so many frames in this film look like Renaissance paintings. But you think about this scene in context. All of these men have been writing for 3 days straight. They haven't slept much, and especially the night prior, they had to ride through the night in order to get there on time. And when they get there, they still realize that they have 90% of an army to try and take over. And so once they come over that hill, they really don't know what they're about to see, and they see all of Mordor at the gates of Minas Tirith. Well, at least a good percentage of Mordor. And against all odds, Theoden King riles them to glory. And what does he say? Not for our legacy and not for us to live, but to die. And he screams death. And so they all just know they're riding into death. And so to me, it is just so harrowing and so horrifying. And yet these men do not care, because their one purpose in life is to rid Middle Earth of evil. And that is their purpose at this moment, right? And so for me, it's just like every single time I tear up, because it's just so incredibly powerful. I mean, you're seeing an entire city burn. You're just riding headfirst into it. So for me, that would probably be my favorite part, if not one of my favorite parts, because there's so many. But so in terms of, I was going to say, will we ever see this again? Kyle, do you think they would ever remake The Lord of the Rings? Do you think that if because we always joke, oh, Disney's got the rights to Star Wars now. Just wait another decade, they're gonna remake the original trilogy. Do you think any production company would pay for the Tolkien estate and then remake The Lord of the Rings?
They'd be fucking stupid if they tried to do that. It's just like the dipshits are like, we're gonna get another Back to the Future film. We're gonna remake Back to the Future. It's like, if you want to remake a perfect film, go right the fuck ahead. Like, you're going to fail. Nice try. If you want to remake Lord of the Rings, go ahead. See where that gets you. Like,
I think you can say the same thing about Harry Potter. Absolutely. And I know I have all of the books. I read all of the books. Okay. I get that there was a lot left out. I think there's a tremendous opportunity for a lot of those things that could have been in there, but it wasn't. And the problem is that, like it or not, Daniel Radcliffe is Harry Potter. Okay. Anybody coming along that isn't Daniel Radcliffe, it's going to have a really hard time with that. The problem is I don't see over the horizon to where somebody would take those books, even with what they want to do now, with apparently this is going to be a streaming show, where they're going to just tell Harry Potter's story. They're just going to do what J.K. Rowling did. I don't see far enough over a horizon to see where that's going to happen with anything. And the same thing to be said with the group that bought all the Tolkien rights a couple of years ago. And I forget what the hell it is, but they're going bankrupt. They did was buy IPs. And they have yet to release major games, and they're just hemorrhaging money. But boy, they sure did put out a really amazing diversity, equity, and inclusion statement. I'm not kidding. That's still where their time is going. And these are the people who have all the rights to the Lord of the Rings. So to me, it's not black pill. It's just like, will something break? Maybe, but will something else happen that will preclude all of these conversations, because these studios will never be held accountable for their actions, because they've been really effective at pushing propaganda? I think that's more likely, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah,
sure. Oh yeah.
As much as I want to disagree with Salty on the Harry Potter idea, I definitely think you could make better scripts, but he's spot on with, you're not going to get better actors, and the actors that we had are so iconic that in a lot of ways you can't replace them. At the same time, I just know, I know for a fact, Hermione Granger's going to be a black female.
Of course,
they're gonna They're gonna take stuff that's like post-mortem of the books that came out later, like, oh, Dumbledore's gay, and they're gonna add stuff in to make sure you know it from the.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, RuPaul will be Dumbledore.
No.
God willing.
You know what?
God willing.
Kyle's like,
Hey Harry,
do it.
you got email.
Let them do it because then I can watch it all burn. That's what Kyle's most
buy
like.
physical media. Buy physical media.
Yes.
Maybe it'd be like a cock
Yes.
ring, not an actual real ring or something like
Right.
that.
You know what's so interesting is sorry, I'm just I'm looking for more scenes in my Lord of the Rings DVD here. But yeah, what's so interesting is that as I was rewatching this today, and I'm watching a couple of streams. I know Gary had a stream. The Nerd of the Rings guy, I think he has a YouTube channel. He did a stream where he was watching it, and what I found is that Jackson did take liberties with the books adapting to film. And what happened is most of the things that he adapted, he may have even made a little bit better cinematically, right? That how we experience things as an audience probably looked a little bit better. If he were to showcase the scouring of the Shire at the end of the battle at the Black Gates, I don't think audiences would have been as understanding or welcoming to that ending, right? They want the ending to be in the Shire where Sam goes back to his, Rosie Cottontail or whatever her name, I forget her name, but they cinematically it makes much more sense to do that. But the best thing about it is that it's all faithfully adapted from Tolkien's heart. Like it feels like it. What would Tolkien do? It all feels very genuine, whereas I felt like with the Rings of Power, it was all very narcissistic. It felt very forced, and
Nothing to
it didn't
do.
feel like it was in the heart of Tolkien.
Right.
It didn't
It's
really
like,
feel.
what would I do if I was this character? This is what
yeah.
I would do. It's like, no, what
Absolutely.
would
Yeah.
Galadriel do? Is that what
Yeah.
you would do?
Yeah.
And let's be honest, those were not characters written, those were identities written. All right. What was the marketing plan for this show? Okay. Like our first Black Puerto Rican elf. Why don't you like our first Black Puerto Rican elf? You're a racist if you don't like our Black Puerto Rican elf. Guess what? The Black Puerto Rican elf makes no fucking sense at all. This whole movie sucks. Well, it's because you're a racist because you don't like our Black Puerto Rican elf. And then we had Deeza. You remember listening to that lady talking about how rough everything is? And it's like, you just don't like black women. It's just shut up. What you made sucks. And you know what? The more time that goes by, it sucks even more. You made $1 billion meme where I don't think anybody who, if they set out to make something this bad, could fail as bad as you did. Think about that one, Amazon. Literally.
It is quite impressive to spend that much money and yet, have most people dip out of the show. I think, what was it? Only 36% or 37% of people who started. 27, only 27% of people.
Was it 27 or was it 37? I thought it was 27.
It was
like
between
30.
there. But that was kind of the ratio of people who watched it and finished it. So out of out of 100 people who watched it, only 37 or 27, however much it was, people finished the show, which is not what Amazon wanted, nor did
The
they
shill
expect.
critics you brought out to tell it weren't even watching the fucking show.
No, they did. That's right. That's right. Because that
No.
one girl who was on TikTok, like she was doing a live stream or something, and someone like commented, they were like, "Oh, how's the Rings of Power show?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm still finishing Game of Thrones because that's way better. So I'm just gonna wait until." And I was like, "Holy shit! They can't even get the shills, the paid shills, to like say that it was good."
Yeah.
You know what else I forgot was this moment right here, and I don't know how I could have forgotten this.
Yeah.
But my friends, you bow to no one is just like, I mean, come on. I'm recognizing that there are a lot of tear-jerking moments in this film. Not that there weren't any in the previous films, but in the third one, particularly, there are so many good moments that I think because it really is the end of a journey. It's the end of an era. and you finally see kind of what has been happening for the past 3 years come to an end, and you feel like you're in this world, you know, you feel like you're there. And so when you say goodbye to everyone, it really is kind of a sad, man, I really am not going to see you guys anymore.
Yeah.
So, and then the, you know,
And
the
this
go ahead.
scene is earned.
Oh,
This was
100%. Yeah.
all how
Led
many
up to this.
deaths, how
Mhm.
many losses, you know, Boromir, how many elves died, you know,
Mhm.
at Helm's Deep. I mean, all of the deaths is so that when you watch this and you watch Aragorn in all of Gondor kneeling down to these hobbits, it is not representation, it's not identity politics, it's not messaging, it's the meritocracy in its most purest form. Like what these little bastards had to go through for the last like 3 movies, they're lucky to be alive, and some of them are scarred forever, you know,
Yeah.
namely Frodo. So I mean, that's what makes this scene earned, as opposed to, oh look, we have someone of this ethnicity and this sexuality on the platform, and look, there's somebody with a who has sausage, who's wearing a dress, you know, like they're on the platform. Give them validation, you know. I mean, and that's the big disconnect with all of this. The
Yeah,
modern
instead
stuff,
it's
in my
4
opinion.
white males. Thanks.
I know.
So
It's so terrible. It's so much
2003. Fuck off.
patriarchy. Yeah.
Yeah, how can I enjoy this? This is so this
What
is
a
not
vomit.
representative of our world today. Gosh.
I
Ugh.
know.
I love the idea though
Um,
that if you ask people, they would definitely make the argument that this is not representative of today or representative of them because they're in a certain group. When one of the messages here literally is, it doesn't matter who you are, you can be a hero based on what you choose to do with your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're going to completely ignore that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was listening to Disparu today. He said something kind of interesting, and he was talking about how American tales seem to be more focused on the heroic aspects of a like very courageous protagonist, like a leader who is very you know, virtuous and bold, right? And English tales, English folklore seems to root for the little guy. It's always these like humble, kind of unassuming. You know, the underdog, right? And that's what the hobbits are. They are the quintessential underdogs. You know, you would never think that these are the guys that are going to save Middle Earth. So I thought that was kind of interesting, whereas like if it were an American tale, it may have been Aragorn or Boromir who takes the ring to Mordor, and yet no, it's these guys. So you know, another beautiful depiction of how this is Tolkien's story. This isn't ours,
Mhm.
right? This is his, and we are just trying to faithfully enjoy it and adapt it as best we can. And so that's why I think that this, you know, series will just live on forever. Now, culturally, and while we talk about this, I'm going to try and find my favorite. So not my favorite scene, but my favorite still from the entire film that I want as a
Oh.
painting hung up in my house.
Mm.
I'm gonna try and look for it because it's only one brief moment, but it will forever be. Kyle, it's kind of like your Jaws photo
hmm
of the
Sweet.
captain up in
Yeah,
the
Quint. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna look for that. But while I look for that, I'll go this way now. I'll go Salty and then Josh and Kyle and Drew. What did this do? What do you guys think this did culturally? Like, because we were all around when this first came out. What did this do for you? What did this do for your life? Did it have any impact on your life? And what do you think this does culturally, like as a film?
Yeah.
I don't think it really has the necessary. I don't think we necessarily need to do the whole Eternals. It's going to save lives, right? That they were preaching on the red carpet.
This movie had no lesbians. How can it save any lives? Max?
Exactly,
You know?
right? Ugh.
Fair.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I'll let you guys kind of take it away with that.
Josh, who do you want to go first? Let Josh go first.
I
Very
mean,
good.
look, so I'm trying to think of when, like I said, I saw the movies before I read the books. And I think the first movie came out when I was probably in 5th or 6th grade. So it was when I was starting to discover what I felt was good storytelling and good filmmaking, not me just running with the basis of what other people thought was good. And for me, I think just because I was a theater kid, just because I did study film, like going out of high school. For me, it was understanding characterization, understanding storytelling, understanding patience and pacing. So from a film aspect, it did that for me. Story aspect, I don't know. Like I feel like I'm that lucky age where I grew up with a plethora of watching heroes and their journeys, something that I think is lacking now. And I think I took it for granted. And I think that's more of the story that I would have, not how much it impacted me, even though it did, just how much I took this for granted, along with some of the other stories that I think are classic stories.
Yeah.
So when you first watched it, then was this kind of your entrance into, if I'm going to make characters or if I'm going to write a story, I want it to kind of follow the epicness of this? Or I like, did you take story elements from the Lord of the Rings, or was it just the thought process of, hey, I can do this now. Like I know what good storytelling is because I have a blueprint of it here. Like what did that look like for you? Because I think you were saying that you really understood the characterizations of or the motivations of the characters at that point.
I think it has more to do with there has been this kind of underlying thought in Hollywood for a while now that you can't tell an epic in the way that this is an epic story. And this is kind of what I was referencing earlier. If you get series now, they're typically individual films that are very much individual standalone films that might have some threads that go through. This is easily one gigantic film just broken up into 3 films. You don't get storytelling like that. Most of Hollywood says you can't do storytelling like that. And Peter Jackson proved not only can you do it, you can do it successfully, and it can stand the test of time. And yeah, it's only been 23 years, but this is definitely one of those series that's going to last. It's going to be looked at decades and decades and decades from now. So,
it's what I have never seen done since then, since the late 90s, which is when I think this film was made. I have not seen another trilogy or another sequel. Even Dune, like we're about to get Dune here pretty soon. I don't think they filmed any of it at the same time, which is what Lord of the Rings did. I don't think Dune, like I think Dune finished. They wrapped primary. What is that called, Josh? You're a film, you're a theater kid. Say again?
Yeah, principal
filming or whatnot. They wrap that, and then they go to post-production. Maybe they do some reshoots afterwards, but for the most part, the film is done. But for the Lord of the Rings, it was like they were filming all of this. Go ahead, Salty. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, unless you're the Marvels and unless you're Aquaman,
oh yeah,
half the goddamn movie 3 or 4 times.
Or
I'm serious. I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's how that works now.
Yeah. Unless you are Captain Falcon America, who New World Order, which is like not even a complete rewrite. It's going to be a completely just a new film. Like they're just
and the writer they brought in to save the movie is a chunk of shit too. I mean, like, what are they doing? I mean, seriously. I'm going to stop. Yeah, you're getting Disney's dead. It's dead. Oof. Dude, get in the drug dealing business, Disney. It's the only way you're going to stay afloat. All right.
Well, yeah.
Tell me there's a chance. There's a chance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a chance. I was going to say one thing I will add about when these movies came out, and now that I'm thinking about it, I remember it. Like, I'm from East Texas. I grew up in a small farm town, total Bible Belt. So even back in the day, and I worked for a church, a Baptist church. A lot of people even back then were anti-Hollywood because they felt like Hollywood has always kind of pushed against, the standards of what is considered good. And I remember prominent members of local churches pushing people to go see this because they felt like it was good storytelling and something that still lived up to the ideals that, the church stands behind. So for me, I remember thinking that was interesting because it was like you had the Chronicles of Narnia and then you had this that was kind of roughly around the same time period. And I remember churches like backing both of these really heavily.
That's huge, especially the fact that churches, well, Christians tend to get the the constant joke of like, oh well, your mom didn't let you read Harry Potter because it's witchcraft, and like there are those families that
Yeah.
I know plenty when I was living in Texas. And Salty, I know you lived in Texas for a while, and
I grew up with that. I had my parents
Yeah.
throw away all my Dungeons and Dragons stuff because they thought demons were coming in the house.
Yeah,
This is the 80s.
satanic
I
panic,
lived
man.
through that. I lived
Yeah.
through that. All right, that's real. Yeah.
The friend that I went to go see these movies with, his name's Seth. His parents wouldn't let him watch things like Power Rangers because there were monsters. But we're like, the reason we went to go see this is because his dad, who's like the biggest fuddy dud, and that's the best way I can describe it, was like, y'all need to go see this movie. And it was like
Wow.
matter of fact. So I was like, wow,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, culturally, like if we're talking culturally, that is a big cultural moment for a lot of Christians. I wonder if it is because of the fact that despite the monsters, despite the gore and some of the horrific acts of violence, I mean, you see guys with PTSD, you see the
Yeah.
horrors of war. At its core, though, it is a story of good and evil, light and dark. And I think, regardless of whether you want to say it or not, I think you have to recognize that Lord of the Rings is a at its core a faith-based story, just based off of how Tolkien wrote it. I mean, you have Iluvatar, which is God, and Gandalf, who is this angelic holy figure, like things like that, where it's like you don't need to look at that subtext. You can still watch the film and not even look at it. But if you really do want to delve deeper, there are a lot of Catholic themes, which I think is really cool.
The sacrifice. And it's a primarily, I mean, if you're going to
absolutely.
look at religion just in a academic sense, like
Mhm.
the idea of sacrifice and suffering for your faith,
Yeah.
for what you believe in good is of the highest order. Now, within the Christian, obviously within the Christian faith, faith without works is dead. I think you can translate that across the board, but you really do have people, you have to have faith in something greater than yourself. You have to know what the difference between good and evil. And that's really what this movie is. I mean, things are black and they're white. There's God and there's the devil. Essentially,
Mhm.
that's kind of what we're looking at in this film. And then what do people do with those decisions? Some cave, some are weak, some have redemption after realizing that they were on the wrong team. Boromir, I'm looking at you. I mean, all those types of allegories are there.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head when you said sacrifice. That's such a
Yeah.
great word for it. For $5, my man DJ Smith, thank you for the $5, my man. He says, my parents wouldn't let me see Harry Potter, but let me see Lord of the Rings. Well, there you go. I mean, that's proof enough, right? So DJ, thank you for the $5, and I'm so thankful for your parents that they let you at least watch Lord of the Rings, because it's beautiful. So speaking of which,
Oh God, that music.
oh, it's so good.
Oh
It's
my
so
God.
gosh dang good. Thank you again, DJ Smith. I'm about to send myself a super chat just to play another clip. But no, I'm kidding. And before we get to what you guys are saying here about the cultural significance, I did want to mention this is my favorite still from the entire film. And I know that most people would be like, well, that's kind of random and weird and odd, but I don't know what it is. I immediately saw this I remember this as a kid, seeing this in the movie, and I just remember thinking this world exists. There's no way that it doesn't, like it's perfect. It looks like a Renaissance painting, but it also looks like it's so lived in. It looks like I'm there, and it's just simple. This is right after Faramir has gone out to sacrifice himself in order to try and retake Osgiliath, after the steward has said, yes, I do wish that Boromir had lived and you had died. And so he goes out just, thinking, well, this is my kind of suicide note. And Gandalf is now kind of ruminating with the horrors of what is about to come, which is war. So it's perfect. Everything about this is just perfect. But I don't know if you guys have a specific still from the film or like a frame, but if you do, let me know and I'll try and find it. But for me, it's this by far and away.
I mean, if I had to have like a still painted and hung up in my room,
Mhm.
it would probably be Fireball Denethor eating himself off the castle. You know,
Yes. You know what I realized?
Yeah.
Rewatching this, he has to run a long
A
way
long
on
way.
fire. He's got to run through, like, over the bridge, through the like corridor where the white tree is, and then over the top. It's so funny, but it's so cinematic, and it works perfect. Josh, I like how you also said yeeting. He did yeet himself over. So,
Mhm.
sure as hell did.
yeah.
There's a
And,
moment that. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. No,
I was
you're
gonna
fine.
I was gonna say there's that moment, and it's after you think the Battle of Pelennor Fields has been won, when the Rohirrim are and I'm getting Streambane, the leader of Rohan, the king is, damn it,
Oh, Theoden?
and Theoden. When Theoden turns around and he can hear the horns from, I think the Oilifants and the Easterlings coming,
No.
and he turns and he rears his horse, and you watch his face, and he goes from shit, we're not done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not only that, but how the hell do we fight these guys? Because their losses were pretty significant, despite what happened with with the other help that they received. But it was that moment of just holy shit, we're not done yet. And that's when it really kicks off. And even more sacrifices have to be made.
Not only like, oh, we're not done yet, but like we're just getting
That's
started.
That's it. That's that look of, my God, can I get a break? You know what I mean?
Oh, come on,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%. But like you said, Salty, he quickly turns around. He goes from, oh shit, you gotta be kidding me, to reform the line, and gets everyone right back.
Oh yeah.
And then he charges again in the opposite direction from whence they first charged. You know what I mean? Like going back into this just you can see his frustration. He's like,
yeah, that's it right there. Like,
yeah,
God damn it, can I at least get a beer before we do this? You know what I mean? It's like,
beautiful. Kyle, do you have a culturally significant to you or significant to culture? What did this film do for you? Like, do you remember watching this in the theater, or was this something that you watched later? Did you see people around you watching this and talking about this? Like, what was your experience with this?
Yeah, it was interesting. I took this for granted for sure. I was in high school when these were coming out, or just getting into high school, and then I was in high school when this one came out, and so I was around that age where very impressionable. And our mom she read The Hobbit to us when we were kids. At least when I was a kid, she read The Hobbit for us. But I tried to read The Fellowship of the Ring. It's boring as fuck. I can't.
Oh yeah, all the rivers and creeks and Tom Bombadil, and you're like,
these fucking fucks standing around talking and going to somebody's house and then drinking and then jacking off for another 6 months. And it's like, are we gonna get anywhere? I know Eurotrash love doing this shit and it's great.
oh
but
my goodness,
somebody fight something, please. So I appreciate Peter Jackson and the importance of urgency in a story. So, but anyway, culturally, when these came out, I didn't understand how great I had it, and it's probably the same people when Star Wars came out in '77, and you get that trilogy, or The Godfather, or these, Citizen Kane. You're like, you don't understand the sheer significance of the movie you're seeing at the time, and this was definitely one of those. All three of them, I saw all of them in theaters, and just leaving the theaters, just being absolutely blown away. Like, I cannot wait to watch this at home. Like, immediately when it came out on DVD back then, it's like, I want this movie. I want to watch it again and again and again and again and again. And you're just blown away by everything when everything falls into place. Like, that is pure magic. Like, from all the way up to the fucking catering on these movies.
Yeah.
Like, you had everybody
Catering.
Yeah.
on their A game. Everybody
Yeah.
respected the lore, wanted to do it, and do it 150%. And it's like, how rare is that?
Yeah.
It's I think Robert My Burnett, who I love his takes. I love his YouTube channel. He was saying today on stream that this was a film unlike any other because an entire country came together to film this
That's
thing,
it.
and to,
That's
and
it.
and that is like everyone from New Zealand knew that this was their lot in life. They were like,
Yeah.
this is what like you had stuntmen from New Zealand. You had, like you said, even down to the catering was from New Zealanders, a bunch of Kiwis. It was an entire country that came together and just said, we are going to be, if we're going to be known for something, this is where we're going to be known for, and we're going to do it right. And like you said, everyone on that set respected what the professor had written, what his intentions were, what the spirit of the story was. And you can see with every single ounce of chainmail, every little detail of the Rohirrim palace, down to like the drapery, like hand sewn drapery, stuff like that, where it's just like, this will never ever be done again. And if it is, it may just it may just look completely different, or it may just all be CGI, or it may be great, but it may be a different different franchise. But and Salty, I think you were going to say something. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I honestly, so I'm not going to make, you skipped over me when you asked about something. So I was just going to jump in real quick before.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm hearing all of your ages, and it doesn't make me feel old. It just makes me no, it makes me appreciate your perspectives a little bit different, because I was 30 when the first movie came out.
Oh, wow.
And I'm doing math because it's what, 20 years today, right? So I would have been 31. And I was in the movie opening night. And so I have a different perspective. It's not right or wrong. It's just different. And I remember very clearly some of the events that happened in our country in 2001, how our economy was in a shambles, and we were at war. And everything was fear, and see something, say something, and all this shit, right? And then you have a movie like this, human decency, Christian values, Western values, heroes, clearly defined good and evil, something that you can go into this and you can feel good, and that you can persevere through this, and we did get through that. And this is not a political statement. It's just a reality, of the time that we lived through. It wasn't easy back then, and this was just one of those movies where it was still, movie going was an event. Movies were sold out. Movies made a lot of money if they were good. Yeah. And people dressed up. People liked making good movies because they liked making money. You know what I mean? Not all of them were good, but it's just, I look at it that way. And I was going through a very difficult time in my life. I was getting divorced right about then. And I remember going to this movie and getting dragged by a friend of mine, to get me out of my head. And sure as hell it worked, So that's my association with this movie. So,
dude, thank you for sharing. And because your perspective is so unique, because like I think Kyle and Josh and I are probably the same relatively in age. But I mean, because I turned 30 this past July. So for me, like me thinking about going to the film, like the movies tomorrow, and watching a film like Return of the King, I can't get there mentally, because for the past decade haven't really had much, right? So and like you said, the cultural significance in that time period of 2001 era, 2002, where we're seeing the aftermath of what has just happened. We needed this film more than anything at that period of time to just escape from what was going on. And thank you for that. Like I said, thank you for that perspective, man. Because also going through difficulty of a, like you said, of a divorce, I'm sure brought you to a world where allowed you to pull values from this film and this world, and allow you to kind of, input it into your own life. And
entertainment was actually entertaining.
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I mean?
right.
And
What
then
a what a
how many times have we
novel
watched
concept.
this movie, guys? I mean, how many? You know, I own this thing. I got multiple sets of the DVDs. I got multiple Blu-ray plus the 4K. It's just like, just because if something happens, I want to make sure I can watch it. You know, I mean, like, what movies are out there where you do that, where you obsessively have those things? You know,
Oh, yeah. So rad. I think for me, because so gosh, I don't even know. I would have been 10, I want to say. So I would have been really young when I first saw this film. And I had already seen the two films prior, but I think this was really the defining moment for me, because I was like, as a 8, 9, 10-year-old, you are super impressionable. Kyle, I think you were like, oh yeah, I'm in high school. I'm an impressionable kid. You know, at 9 years old, you are defining who you are as like or you're wondering who you are as a person. You're like looking up to human beings and being like, what is this thing, right? How do my thoughts even work at 8, 9, 10 years old? So this was really incredible to me because for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, like I'd seen my dad and seen him as like a hero, or seen him as someone that I could look up to. But then I saw these characters and I was like, oh my God, these people exist all, like these people have existed
so
throughout
cool.
time, and it was just, as a kid at that young of an age, you're just like, oh my God, this stuff is real. Right. Which is also why the orcs scared me so much, because I was like, these things exist. So I don't
it's
know.
so interesting to hear this. I mean, just like you guys thought it was wild that, like, old man Corey saw it when he was 30. Like, hearing that you guys were like around 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever it was watching this. I mean, dude, could you imagine? Like, that just blows my mind. Because where do you go? Like, where do you go from a movie like this? I mean, what's even on the same level?
That's it's almost like I felt spoiled, because like now nothing will ever live up to this, and I'm like,
Peak
I'll
too early.
never. What's up?
Peak too early.
Peak too early. Way too early. Yeah. Josh, you're on the panel. You're crazy, dude. I love you, but you're on the panel. I love it. Thank you, Josh. He for $10 too. Not even like 99 cents, but for a full $10. He says, true or false, Max is Aragorn, Salty is Theoden, Kyle is Éomer, I'm Legolas. Oh, okay, fine, Gimli. And Drew is Wormtongue. I mean, he fell asleep in the movie, but at least he killed Saruman. Oh, that is fucking funny.
That's badass.
Dude. And Drew is just like, I don't know who Grima Wormtongue is.
Sure.
I'll take that death. I'll take that.
I love Salty as Theoden. I think Salty as Theoden works very, very well.
He answered the call. I mean, that's a leader right there.
Yeah.
That's a leader. Yeah. He answered when we called. He answered. Kyle is Éomer. Let's see.
I don't have that suave that Carl Urban has. I mean, he's a dude. He's a man. Well, I'm not a man.
you look at Éomer, and what are his like primary traits? Loyalty, sacrifice for his country, right? And these are all things that I think that you uphold, right? Éomer, even when he was banished, he still was like, I'm going to stick around here because I know, in the second film, he's like, I know that something's going to go down, and when it does, I'm going to be ready to respond. So he stayed there, still ridding, Rohan of these Uruk-hai that were there, even when he was banished, because he loved his country so much. So yeah, I could see that. Josh being Legolas or Gimli. I don't know. Do you like Orlando Bloom, Josh?
Sure. Legolas is way too stoic for me. We all know that I would be the one up there, like, being Gimli, cracking jokes. Counting how many orcs I've killed. Yeah, I 100%. I'm also probably the shortest one on the panel. So,
all right.
You know what? And comparatively, I'm actually probably the second shortest, because Salty is 6'5". I at least the last time I checked. So yeah, he's a tall MFer.
Mm.
Didn't know
So
that. So salty.
I have
Salty and
I have a
Vernon.
Josh action figure, by the way. Let's see how much.
ooh, look who
There
it
he
is.
is.
Well,
Oh,
there's
there-
It looks
Well,
just
there-
like him.
Josh. I know.
Fitting
But
image.
Josh.
It's perfect.
Right? And look, I've even got a beard.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I see what
Ah.
you did there. Yeah. That is beautiful. That's a great action. I didn't know you had that action figure, Salty. That's a
Dude,
great
I'll tell you,
figure.
I'm
I
going to
love
show
that.
this off. I'm going to show this off, and then I'll stop doing
Ooh.
it. But it took me 2 years to get this one to not have to pay several $100s for it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, dude.
The Galadriel. Or no,
Well,
is that Eowyn?
Oh,
this is Eowyn, which is
Eowyn.
impossible to
Oh.
find. Impossible.
Really?
Impossible. Yeah. Well, for the money I wanted to pay for her. I'm not paying
Wow.
several $100 for this thing.
Yeah.
You know?
That's
But you
beautiful.
talk about it being
that white
20 something
gown.
years ago. There's not a lot of these left in the secondary market anymore.
So I believe
No.
it, man. And especially with
Oh.
that character, I don't think they probably printed a lot of her,
They didn't.
right?
I've
So
only got one more in this set. I have a whole bunch of them back here, and that is Arwen in the white dress. I have Arwen in the
Dude.
purple dress, but people want $2,000 for that, and I'm not giving anybody
Ooh.
$2,000 for a piece
Oh
of
my
plastic,
God.
man. Yeah,
that's wild.
Wow.
yeah.
I will
But I'm not a real
shamefully
fan.
say-
I'm not a
No,
real fan. I'm just
no,
a
we're not real
racist and
fans or anything.
a
We just
bigot,
hate
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Can we
Uh,
acknowledge how Eowyn is put a chick in it and make it gay, but done right?
Oh, man.
well, I would
No, I mean,
argue.
really
She
not
wanted
gay,
the D.
but-
She
Yeah, yeah.
wanted that D, though. She
Oh, yeah.
really wanted that Aragorn D. Really.
I'm
I
just
was
joking
also
because
gonna
she
say,
comes
yeah.
in and has that heroic moment, you know,
Mhm.
and it's like if you were to
Mhm.
do that in today, it would be just such a clusterfuck compared to how it actually happened. Because like you're like, fuck yeah, like you know, when she
But
does.
you can be a badass woman and a warrior and still be feminine. You know, the
Yeah.
Right.
femininity is not weakness. You know, it's not at all.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. That's not this conversation, but it's remarkable to me how that's just entirely gone. And the only
Mm.
femininity is there can be assigned to men in some
Correct.
weird way where they look weak.
Yep.
Because it's bullshit. But
Yeah. No, it is super strange. And you know, the archetypes of masculine and feminine are shown within this film with a few subversions, but for the most part, Eowyn is extremely feminine throughout the film. And even when she consoles Theoden as he's dying on the battlefield, she's like weeping for him.
Nurturing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she still has that nurturing motherly nature. She still is a woman warrior of Rohan. But it begs the question, and I think multiple people can ask this every single year when the anniversary comes around. People always ask, if the movie was released today, would that scene, untouched, would that same scene be the same thing as when everyone kind of goes out and goes, oh, it's woke, intersectional, feminist propaganda? And I really don't think so. And I
that
know that
character,
people would say
that character was built and existed from the second movie forward. You
Yeah.
saw the relationship. She saw that she was an orphan. You saw that she was alone. She was very feminine. It's not like she was wearing a Mary Tyler pantsuit or something like that. She was caring. She wanted to nurture. Taking care of the people when they went, and yeah, she wanted to fight. Of course, she wanted to fight, but that didn't take away from her femininity. That just meant that she was a moral woman with convictions who wanted to fight for her country and for her people. That's neither masculine nor feminine. That's just being a good person.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And even if you kept that femininity, and like if they made this today, even if you kept that femininity in that character, today's version would have her talking down to all the men around her.
That's
explaining why she's better, doing everything but like that's what you would see.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference, is like we can have a strong I hate to say strong female character, right? Because that's like the quintessential term that people use, that even now Hollywood actresses are like, anytime I see strong female character, I reject the script, right? But Eowyn is one of those individuals who now, if it were made, she would have to kind of take shots at Aragorn. She would have to say to Aragorn, oh, well, you're not truly a king. right? What are you? You're not a man at all if you don't take up your mantle as king, blah blah. Like just the bullshit that comes with kind of tearing down the other men in order for her to look more heroic, and yet that never had to happen here. All the men have their heroic moments, and she has her heroic moment, and I think that's the big. It's not an like a or an it's not an or, it's an and. But yeah, this is kind of her scene where most people would cringe at the "I am no man" line, but I really think it's earned, and I think that it fits perfectly. And even as a kid, I thought nothing of this. I just thought, oh yeah, she is getting revenge on someone who's just killed her father, right, or her grandfather, or her uncle. Sorry. So, but yeah,
It was like,
kind of an
it's like
interesting.
the A-Force team moment in Endgame right there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, girls get it done. They just all walk out on the "Hi there, Peter Parker," whatever Captain Marvel says. Josh, thank you again for the $10, brother. That is super kind of you. And to that I say, and cheers. We also have Zax for as a member for 19 months. Dude, thank you. Hail and cheers to you for 19 big ones, baby. That is awesome. Thank you so much. On your way to 2 whole years. My gosh. So, he says, I want Josh to be my Arwen.
Oh,
Be
So
careful
does
what
that
you wish
mean-
for, Zaxi.
So does that mean that Josh would stay back, give up the light of Elendil, and have babies with you, Zax? Is that what?
I think that's
At least
exactly what Zach's asking for.
Yeah, and then we all know Zax would yell at me, "Go to the stream, woman. There's clothes to be washed," and I would cry. And go.
We also have DJ Smith for $5. DJ, thank you again for another 5. He says, what I loved about this trilogy is that they let the drama and tension scenes happen without this is huge, dude.
Or ripping big
Huge.
farts, because everything has to be a goddamn joke, right? Every single
Right.
thing now has to be a joke.
Yeah.
I want
No,
Joss
that-
Whedon to do the next one when they remake it. That's what I want. I want that quippy dialogue and the fun jokes. That's what I want. I want to laugh. Damn it.
No, wait a sec, because I love the Avengers film. I will say that 2012 Avengers, was that when it was? 2011?
Or, yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Lord of the Rings. But
Got a bad mic.
he
Yeah, you're hot, brother. Sorry about that.
Coming in hot.
Yeah, coming in hot. Yeah, while he gets his mic situated, I will say that the 2011 or 2012 Avengers Joss Whedon film is probably up there with probably my favorite MCU film of all time, probably right up there with Infinity War and Winter Soldier. But Avengers, I think, is really what kicked off the entire superhero. I mean, of course, Iron Man, but Avengers was the proof of concept to say we can have a team up like this and have it work. But
When
so
Avengers came out, that was the point when even grandmothers and aunts knew who Iron Man was.
Yeah.
That was the point where it really hit everyone.
absolutely. Josh, how you doing on your audio, brother?
Hopefully, I'm not murdering your ears right
There
now.
we
Much
go.
better. Thank
I had
you.
to switch mics.
Okay.
Fucking mic, man.
I've
Well,
broken
you're-
many. I've ripped many out of my laptop and busted them off camera. I'll tell you what. That's why I keep a spare all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
smart. But yeah, so I was gonna say though, DJ, this is a great point. Thank you for the $5. The other thing that they don't do is not only do they not undercut things with jokes, but the jokes that they do have are funny. Because believe it or not, Thor: Love and Thunder, a lot of those jokes don't land, and they make their main hero like the joke, like he's the butt of the joke most of the time.
Yeah.
So the jokes that land in this film, or I guess throughout the franchise, would you like me to describe it to you, or would you like me to grab a box?
Yes.
That shit's funny,
Yes.
right? And the way that Gimli looks up at him like, you motherfucker,
Yeah.
that is funny. When Pippin is being, when he offers himself to the king, and Gandalf is just like,
Stuart.
well, you're the steward now, you're just like, of course,
Yeah.
you fucking idiot,
Yeah.
So
there's
things
that
like that
scene
that
with
are-
Eowyn too, where she makes that terrible soup or stew for Aragorn, and
Oh
he
yeah, that's right.
takes one bite and he's
Yep.
trying to dump
You're
it
like-
out, and she turns around and he spills it all in his lap, and he has to
Ugh.
sit there and eat it in front of her. I mean, just
Yeah.
stuff like that it's the human element of this, but it's not like pull my finger in the middle of the movie,
Mhm.
Absolutely.
So
All the humor matches the characters. You know what I mean? Like it's not subverting anything. It's not trying to take them out of character. All of the jokes make sense within the context of their own dialogue, which is
yeah.
why it works so well. But yeah, DJ, brilliant point here and very well said. So thank you for the $5. Do I have any other Lord of the Rings clips on here? I think I only have those 3 or 4. So I'll just, speaking of comedy, I'll give you some comedy gold right here.
Here's to feeling good all the time.
Here's the feeling good, DJ. Thank you.
That's what they need in Lord of the Rings.
Some Kramer. This was another great point, Jade. You're gonna have to toss me. Yeah.
Don't
And then
tell the
he goes, yeah.
Not a word.
Don't tell the elf.
Yeah, not the beard when Legolas.
Oh,
is
yeah,
grabbing
yeah,
her with the-
yeah.
Grabs him.
yeah. Oh,
Ooh, you know what joke didn't land for me though? And I still, every time I watch the extended edition, this will forever be my only criticism. Otherwise, it's a perfect film. Is when Gimli is walking into the to the land of the dead or whatever they call it. I forget
Oh,
what it's called,
yeah.
but and he's like
Underground.
stepping on the bones, and he's like trying to blow away like the ghostly figures and stuff. And I was just like, yeah.
that's gay.
And he's
Yeah.
like
and
trying
not
to
in
get
a
it
good
away.
way. That's just dumb. It's dumb. Yeah,
It
that's
just
like,
it was yeah. And maybe like once, maybe he steps on a few bones and he's like, and you go, oh, that is kind of creepy. Maybe that's funny. But it keeps going, and then he starts trying to blow away the smoke, and it just keeps going, and you're like, oh, cut. Just say cut, end it,
you are in the catacombs of the undead. Okay. Like
Yes.
boy, you
Yeah.
get one little wispy ghost tendril blow, and then it turns into Disney. Okay. Like you don't do
Yeah.
Disney, you know?
So, but yeah, I mean, I do really enjoy that scene overall. And of course, when Aragorn and I guess the 3 of them leave those catacombs, and they look outside to see the ships, actually, which was a scene that was cut from the theatrical version, but they actually see the ships coming across, and Aragorn falls to his knees and begins to weep because he realizes that he's failed. That was which is so interesting. I wonder why I know they cut it for time, but yeah. Do you guys have a favorite of the extended scenes that were like in the film that you guys watched in the extended version that weren't in the theatricals, or anything you wish they had taken out or left in?
I don't watch the extended that much, to be honest with you. I watch the theatrical.
That's fair.
It's- I haven't watched the theatrical. I mean, not to sound like an asshole, but it's been so long since I've watched the theatrical. I don't know what's theatrical. I mean, I just assume it all needed to be in the movie at this point.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, again, there's so many scenes fit so perfectly, and you could watching it for the first time, you understand you can't have this movie be 4.5 hours, But now it's like I can tell if I'm watching something, say, in passing on TV. I'm like, where the hell's the movie? Like it's missing all this stuff. But
yeah.
I think for the most part, the biggest point of contention between with people that they have is the scene where Saruman ends up, dying, and we get his death scene, which I know that even the late, I'm blanking on his name. I'm so sorry. The actor, yes, Christopher Lee. Thank you. The late Christopher Lee was also angry at the fact that this was taken out as well, because it was such an impactful moment. And we kind of do need to see Saruman withering away, and we actually don't see that in the theatrical, because they just say, "Oh, the Ents have trapped him in his tower."
Yeah, I
Just
remember that
died
as
in there.
when I was 15 and I was leaving the theater because our middle brother was reading the books and he read the books, and I'm like, they're having a fucking Ent watch this guy in a tower. I'm like, how does that doesn't make any fucking
I
sense?
know.
I'm
I
like,
know. I agree.
what happened? They're like, oh no, he actually died. It's like, wait, what? Why didn't they put
Yeah.
that in the movie?
Yeah.
Kind
That's one of
important.
those scenes, but that's one of those scenes like you just assume it was in the theatrical because it's so important. You can't imagine it not
Right.
being there, you know?
Yeah, it's like, nope, it just cuts to finding the lost things, and it's like, oh, okay, on to the next thing now.
And it actually lives out a lot of the storyline or the character development for Theoden, Aragorn, Eomer, Wormtongue. Like, there's so
Yeah.
many characters involved in this that have moments that just kind of glosses over, and it's like, oh, and we're done. So,
Yeah.
but you're right, Kyle. It did, even as a kid, you asked the question of like, wait, are you kidding me? Like, how did he die? Like this powerful man, and these shots are so cinematic and beautiful. But especially like when you look at, and this is something I don't know if I've not noticed this before, or it's kind of like whenever we talk about comic books on our Friday night show. Look at the background in a lot of these shots. It feels like it's shot in New Zealand, but I'm almost positive they're on a set here. And yet those mountains look like they're just right there,
Mhm.
no
It-
peaks and
yeah.
everything like that, but
Yeah.
just those little defining details that make this thing that much better.
Indeed.
We have Christopher Lee to thank for essentially keeping Peter Jackson on point with the adaptation. I believe it. I believe that, Jade, for sure.
And
I
telling him
do-
how how no one makes a sound when you stab him in the back. Like apparently Peter
Mm.
Jackson was going to go the other way, and
Yeah.
and Christopher Lee, being the spy that he was, told him no, that's not how that happens.
Right.
Former spy.
I'm not a fan of AI. I'm not a fan of any of that stuff. But the idea that we could potentially get a movie where Christopher Lee, because he did so many radio dramas as Gandalf, I really wonder
yeah.
what having Christopher Lee as Gandalf would be like. Just it would fundamentally change a lot of things. Of course, then you'd have different actors too. But Gandalf is so pivotal to this, and I think all of us, regardless of our age, and seeing this, there's only one Gandalf now.
Yeah,
and,
right.
Yep,
yeah.
it's true.
Like,
I was going to say, discussing this, Soul Assassin put thoughts on the casting, 10 out of 10 in my opinion. He was the 5th choice for Gandalf. They offered it to 4 actors before him.
wasn't one of them Sean Connery?
Yeah.
Sean Connery, Sam Neill, Christopher Plummer, and then there's somebody else.
Well, Sam Neill had
Neill?
he'd already
Wow.
played Merlin in the Merlin TV miniseries that was out. Yeah.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine Sean Connery going. All we have to do is with the time given to us, just like slapping Eowyn on the ass as she walks.
I was just gonna say,
Hell yeah.
You would just be a totally different Gandalf that we would.
There were so many big franchises he turned down later in his career. And that's why he
The
kind of
Matrix.
did.
Matrix, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's right.
He then he's like, you know what? I'll do Leave Extraordinary Gentlemen. This could be it. Yeah, why not? This
That'll be
I
it.
tried rewatching that just recently, and it's
Oh.
so much worse when you try and give things like that a chance. You're just like, oh no, you should not exist. Seriously.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Which but to Soul's comment here, to his chat, I really do think it's 10 out of 10. One of the beautiful things about the film too, with the casting, is that a lot of these were unknowns, right? Carl Urban, unknown. I just thought that he was Eomer, right? Viggo Mortensen had some films before this, but for the most part, a fairly unknown dude. Orlando Bloom had just graduated, or maybe not even graduated, film school in England, and they had him on a flight the next day. He graduated and was like on set. A lot of these guys had no prior experience, or if they did, it was minor.
And that's kind of what I'm hoping that they do with future iterations of like Warhammer 40K stuff or superhero stuff. I want unknowns. I don't want Pedro Pascal. You know, I want people who I haven't seen before to give them a shot at these acting, acting jobs. So, but yeah, what do you guys think about? Was there anyone in the casting that y'all were like, this is a big name, I don't know if I can separate him from this character and the actor or anything? Because for the most part, I just thought they were all these people.
Sean Bean. It was Sean Bean, I think.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, coming from the Bond, you know, he had been a Bond villain and other stuff like that, and then he walks in, and the dude does not. How do we say it? He was so big and so important, but you never go, my God, that's Sean Bean. You know what I mean? Like with some actors, like, oh, it's Tom Cruise being Tom Cruise in a Tom Cruise movie. You know, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, I was worried about Sean Bean, and he was just great. You know, just freaking great.
Are you kidding me? I think I made a tweet last year or something, and it basically said there are only 3 moments in a man's life that it is acceptable for him to cry: his birth, funerals, and when Boromir dies at the end of the Fellowship, and Aragorn consoles him, and he says, "I would have followed you to the end, my brother, my captain, my king." And I was like, those are the only 3 moments. That's it.
Yeah.
And I still think it holds true to this day. I still cannot get through that scene without just weeping like a little baby. So, and that is thanks to Sean Bean. You know, that performance would not have worked with I don't think with anyone else. So
I was gonna add one other person that originally wasn't supposed to play the role, and it was Viggo Mortensen. I actually think Viggo ended up being one of the Hail Mary hires, because it was supposed to be Stuart Townsend. And I'm sorry, this would have sucked if Stuart Townsend was Aragorn. Like, it would have completely fallen apart.
Especially with how large of a role Aragorn plays in these films. You would, you know, of course, the core of the story is around the hobbits, but we kind of see the story through the lens of the hobbits. You know, we're kind of watching these moments happen around us as these, you know, these little what they would consider like the little humans in this big world, or halflings. Sorry, excuse me. So yeah, to see Aragorn be someone else, I couldn't even imagine what that would look like. But yeah, they realized, I think in the appendices they talk about it, and they say they realized that once they got the actor on set, they realized that he was too young, so they needed a Hail Mary, and so they called Viggo. And thanks to Viggo's son, he was like, "Dad, I love these books. You got to go do it." And he's like, "All right, thanks for your blessing." And he went to New Zealand on a whim. So wherever Viggo Mortensen's son is, thanks for bringing us one of the best, if not the best, hero in some cinema history ever.
Also Hugo Weaving as Elrond. I'm like,
he is Elrond. Dude.
He is Elrond, and at the same time, it's just like, you know, when The Matrix didn't come out, it was very close to this. But Agent Smith, I'm just like, man,
but it's crazy because you not like you've seen. I don't know how many people have seen Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, but Hugo Weaving wasn't that. He plays a drag queen in that movie. The most effeminate drag queen ever. All right. The dude goes and does The Matrix, and then he goes and does this. And I'm like, can we just build an altar to you, dude? Because you are like, you have some crazy mystic like ability to act here. I mean, this guy is Elrond. This guy was also Agent Smith. I mean, it's just
right.
How do you do
Polar
that?
Opposite character. It's like,
yes.
And after that, he did V for Vendetta. If you don't forget that.
And V,
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, Gary Oldman is talented, but I mean, Hugo Weaving is like his own animal. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis too. I mean, that caliber of actor, but there's something about Hugo Weaving that's just like a whole other place. You know?
So, yeah, and you know, I really love, because when I think Salty, we were talking about maybe it was one of your Tuesday streams, I forget, but Salty, I think you were talking about how The Fellowship is your favorite film. I don't know if that still holds true, but
yes,
the
as a
intro,
single film, the single
yes,
film.
yeah. The intro to that film is maybe one of the best intros to a universe, into a world, like
Yes.
unlike any other. And we see Hugo Weaving on the battlefield, and he's like with all the elves, and I think it was in the first or second age or something, but they all have those kind of like these double-edged swords, and when the orcs come to them,
and all in unison, they're like
all in
doing
unison, just flip them up and
yeah.
And Hugo's at the front, and he's been leading these charges, leading these battles for hundreds of years against the armies of Mordor. So, but that is like, to me, when I saw Hugo Weaving in that, I was like, oh yeah, he's Elrond now. There's just no one else that can play that part.
In the subtleties of him when Frodo is brought after being sick, in the conversation with Gandalf trying to be sly and get the elves to take the ring so Frodo doesn't have to bear it, and Elrond, just the understatement of playing this is a really dangerous thing, and we don't have the strength to hide the ring from Saruman and Sauron at the same time. Just God, I don't know. Are we ever going to get another generation of actors like that? And I'm not being black-pilled. I mean, just the amazing amount of dedication to their craft to do a scene like that. And Hugo Weaving is the master of that. I'm going to stop.
Great.
I'm going to stop.
You start the Fellowship at the end. It's the last alliance of man and elves coming together to fight this thing, and it's like, oh, it's over. We won. And then that's the last time you see Hugo Weaving, until again, when he's later telling Gandalf, men are weak. It's men's fault that we're in this shit. Yeah. And it's like, wait, you were just fighting alongside them and you saw how great they can be. And you're like, no, we're fucked. We have to rely on these guys. We're screwed.
And because No, I think because he saw, like you said, and it's a great point. He works with them. He wins these battles with men. But ultimately, when they are in Mount Doom, when they are in the fires of Mount Doom, he sees Isildur turn, at that moment, I think he lost all trust in men. And he said, we can never follow that, or we can never work with them again, right? Our alliance is now broken. And it's such a sad moment. But yeah, you're right. The next time we see him, he's super black-pilled. He's like, the elves are leaving. We're getting the fuck out of here. We're done.
Adios, bitches. We're going west.
Good luck. If men want to, try and fight this off, have at it. Have fun. But I will not be part of your, thing. And even when he's consoling Arwen, when he recognizes that she's dying, and these elves who are eternal, they can live forever. They go to the Undying Lands, right, and live for eternity. He's realizing that she's now becoming mortal. And even in that moment where he has to be tender and gentle, and he has to be compassionate and earnest with his daughter, because she's like, this is my choice. You can't change what is now put into motion now. And sure enough, it's a man that she's fallen in love with. It's just like, oh gosh, the poetic sadness of like realizing that this guy who doesn't trust men anymore has to go to Aragorn and give him the remade sword, the sword that was broken, and fulfill his destiny. It's just
real characters. Imagine that. Real people. Somebody actually caring about a whole universe, a whole world that they've created. Imagine that.
Instead of like 20 minutes of exposition while drinking a coffee in a coffee shop. That's what this movie does, is it shows you. It continually shows you. And there are times that it tells you things, but it's usually in the past. It's about what happened before, and this is why we're doing it. I do want to say Rudy has a great point. Hugo was also great as Red Skull in Captain America.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That was badass.
Absolutely. I totally forgot. Yeah, he has played these like really great villains, but also like strong heroes. But I mean, guys, don't you guys want to see because we're talking about casting, and we're talking about how great Hugo Weaving is. I mean, this is the guy to play Hugo Weaving, right? He's clearly
identical. Looks just like him.
I mean, It's a
It looks like
shot-for-shot remake.
it looks like Olivia Newton-John from 1982. That's
Oh,
what that
no.
looks like. Okay,
Xanadu, Olivia Newton-John.
that's what I'm
Oh,
saying. Somebody
God.
got that reference. Thank you.
And I mean, hey, the guy's a very talented actor. He was clearly, he's gotten gigs with Game of Thrones and stuff, but to cast him as Hugo Weaving, come on, what are we
I don't see
doing?
a problem.
Oh no, Drew. Drew, we have to exclude you from the conversation because you haven't seen Hugo Weaving in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
But
that was when you were asleep.
yeah, and Morfydd Clark. But yeah,
Can I
no,
be
this is new Elrond. So
Can I be devil's advocate? And I don't want to hijack the show. Do you think if we got a good script for the Rings of Mediocrity, if we, it's a gigantic leap of faith, but do you think if we got a pretty good script that felt like Tolkien with these actors that they had, do you think they could have pulled it off?
No,
I don't
because
think so.
I think a lot of times too, even when you don't have the best writing, if you have a good actor, they'll find a way to make it work to a degree. And I think I only watched 2 or 3 episodes of this. And I think, Max, you and I talked about it. The one character that we thought we were going to hate the most was the one that we're like, I actually didn't half mind this actress on screen. And it was Disa,
yeah,
who actually had some charisma. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I
that's
guess I'm
fair.
glad you're here, but no, I don't think they're quality enough.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
how I felt.
if you wanted to do this and have that same level, you needed to go find like those theater people and try to bring them
Real
into
theater
film.
people.
Yep.
Real
Right.
theater people. Yeah.
it is, yeah, because she did, like you said, Josh. Disa kind of, well, actually, most of the dwarves, even the king, like so, Durin, Disa, and then Durin's father. Most of the dwarf actors really commanded screen presence, which I really liked. I thought that the dwarves were done fairly well, and this is like, I hated Rings of Power. I think it's an abomination, and yet I can still find some things that are fairly good about it. And I think the acting performances by the dwarves were fine. And who was it? There was one other actor that I thought was fine for what we got. But no, I think you're right, Josh. There are just way too many entities at play, way too many factors that ultimately
we
just
went,
would have.
Max, we went through that on my live show, all the executive producers and all
Oh,
of the screenwriters and what
yeah.
they did before they came to Rings of Power, in addition to the knuckleheads of Payne and McKay. There was
Yeah.
no way this was ever going to work, you know? And,
No.
and could Morfydd Clark have been a young Gladriel? No. This is like, no way. I think she would have been a great Rohirrim, you know, like a shield maiden. I think she
Sure.
would have been great
Yeah.
at that, but not Gladriel, you know?
Yeah, especially because even if, like you said, even if it's a perfect script, right? Even if it's just so like fully adaptable, fully in the spirit of Tolkien, how it was filmed and how the actors portray what is on that script is, who knows how that would have turned out. It might have been a mess, right? So it would have, unfortunately, as much as I would love to say, oh yeah, a good script could have fixed this, I still think it's the portrayal from the actors. It's even down to the armor and the costume design of this shit looked fucking
was
terrible.
shit.
Yeah, and everything was all CG. Like all the backgrounds were all CGI. Nothing was.
Dude,
they didn't have-
everything
yeah.
was CGI.
People were
They could-
CGI'd, right?
They couldn't show Elrond walking or traveling to anywhere like Moria. They just come around a CG rock like they're
That's
talking
yeah.
on like a stage. It's
Yeah.
like, where the hell did
So
all the money
wild.
go? Seriously.
Such a very good question, and one that I will still ask for the rest of my life. I will always just go, where did all that money go? But well, we've got some other topics that we can cover, but before we go into those, I will just say, if do you guys have anything else that you want to kind of cover before we talk about some kind of generic, larger Hollywood picture stuff about the Return of the King? Is there anything you guys want to discuss? Kind of final closing thoughts on the 20th, this day, the day of our Lord, or the year of our Lord 2023, 20th anniversary. Do you guys have anything to say about Return of the King?
I'm just excited that this conversation has inspired Drew so much that he's going to go back and watch these films now.
I can just feel
honestly,
the radiation of them.
I think at one point, Kyle and I will probably sit down to rewatch these, or maybe we'll have like a watch stream, Max, like you, me, Kyle, Josh, and Salty. Just like rewatching, like sit down with me, and like
I would,
because I fell asleep watching them. So yeah.
We'll keep you up. We'll keep you awake.
Cattle prod or something.
No, I mean, now that now we could either do it on Discord, which is just a voice call, or we could do it through here, StreamYards. And you saw what we were able to do. I just was able to pull the video up, and we could watch it from there. So I mean, it's really up to you, Drew. But we would love for you to watch it, or just on your own, and see if it's even something you would want to even get into. But I highly recommend. I mean, how could I not recommend it? It's my favorite films of all time. So
we'll talk about behind the scenes. We'll talk about it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
but yeah, he's beaming with energy. He just can't wait to get off the stream so he can watch it right after.
I know I have to head out for the night, but I wanted to come on for Lord of the Rings, and I appreciate you having me on, Max. Salty, Josh, Drew, it's been a pleasure talking Lord of the Rings. It's great. I cannot believe it's already been 20 years, and I cannot wait for another 20 years. We can talk about it some more and still talk about how it'll never be remade and how we had it so lucky 40 years ago when we were talking about Lord of the Rings when it came out.
We're going to talk about Rings of Power 20 years from now. What are you talking about? Come on.
Oof.
That could be.
For
different reasons.
I'll tell you this, Kyle. Well, first of all, thank you again for coming on, man. I know that your time is valuable with the little guy, but this is huge. The fact that we were able to get you on, and I love talking about the stuff that we love, especially Lord of the Rings. But yeah, I will say what's so funny is that you were like, oh yeah, we'll talk about this 20 years from now and 20 years after that. I guarantee you, it will only get better as we get older. It will continually get better, and we will find more things to enjoy about it. Which is the gift that keeps on giving. So 100%. I too look forward to seeing it with you 20 years from now. So
likewise. And I will get Drew to watch it one way or the other.
Please. Like you said, if a cattle prod is necessary, I will fund, I'll fund the money. We'll start a GoFundMe and we'll get something like that. But
I have him here. We'll watch the extended cuts here if I have to with him so I can see him watching it.
Perfect. Good.
But thanks for having me on again. Good talking.
Of course, man. My pleasure. Thanks, dude. Enjoy the rest of your night.
You too. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. I will say I brought up back with my previous job when I had employees. I brought up Lord of the Rings in general with one of my employees, and they just gave me a weird look. I'm like, Lord of the Rings, and pretty much a look like you just had, Max. And I'm like, do you not know Lord of the Rings? And they're like, isn't that like really old movie?
Oh, no.
Okay, time out. We're hitting the pause button. What do you mean really old? And they're like, it's really old, right? And I'm like, fuck you. Go work. And they're like, hold on. Well, it came out before I was born. Okay, fuck you again. And
even more.
Yeah.
I cannot believe that.
Yeah. Ooh. Maybe they're talking about the old animated feature from like the 1980s. That's probably what they're talking about.
They don't even know that exists. They legit. Yeah, they were like 19. So I was like, you a-hole. I'm old.
Damn, the fact that someone would say, oh, that movie came out before I was born. Talking about Lord of the Rings. My God. Now I can say that about the Bakshi films, like you guys were talking about, and like the animated stuff, but oh yeah. Oh, that movie's old, right? Yeah, that just I couldn't even. So old. Yeah, I don't know where Salty went. Maybe he I'll check my DMs and see if maybe he lost connection or something. But I will say, yeah, when it comes to the Return of the King, this film for me specifically defined honestly how I lived my life after that. And I know that sounds like, I know that may sound ridiculous. I know that may sound very extraordinary or whatnot, but it truly did define a moment for me as a kid. And after that, I just knew that whatever I wanted to do in life, I wanted to have the courage of Pippin and Merry, or to have the honor and nobility and the courage and strength of Aragorn, or Samwise the Brave, like all of this stuff that seems so trivial because it's just a movie, whatever. But for me, it was a truly defining moment, especially this film in particular, Return of the King, that kind of brought the whole story to a culminating close. So, but that's all I got to say about that. Do you guys want to go over the what could potentially be? Hold on, let's see if I can share it. Oh, I'm already sharing it. Never mind. What could potentially be? We go from like one of the best film franchises of all time to now potentially Aquaman 2 being worse in the box office than the Marvels.
How is that even possible? I don't.
That's my question. How do you guys think that this is possible?
So one, it's a DC, and Marvel still at least has some like fledglings of goodwill, people holding on to hope. We already know this film doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, and it's had like a year to year and a half of negative feedback coming out from people who have watched it or worked on it or whatever the case might be. So, yeah, no, it's gonna tank like nobody's business.
But the Momoa factor, I really think that with the Momoa factor, if he's walking around with his shirt off, there are going to be plenty of ladies in that theater coming back to see that damn movie.
That's very true.
I think they also know, I think audiences also know if they wait 2 months, it'll be on streaming. If that. Like if this tanks it, and if this tanks at the theater, it will be on streaming faster. So, yeah.
Do you guys plan on seeing this in theaters?
Yeah, I do.
Maybe.
Wow. All right.
I'm a Black Manta fan. I love Black Manta, and it looks like he's going to be one of the prominent villains in this, which I'm happy to see. So I will be there for that.
Did you like his portrayal in the first film?
Yeah, I did. I really loved it. I really enjoyed the stuff between him and his father. I love that stuff in the opening scene on the submarine. Great. It's good motivation for him.
Mm-hmm.
Kill my father, he's going to die. So
I'll even echo Drew, and I think Black Manta was probably one of the better parts of the first film. And look, a lot of people were retroactively hating the first film. I didn't hate it. I thought it was fine. I haven't rewatched it since then, but
there were parts of that film I did enjoy. The stuff in the submarine with Black Manta, and I love the stuff with the Deep when they're going down into the trench. I'm like, we didn't get enough. I want to get more of that, and I don't know if we're gonna be getting more of that in this film, but we'll see what happens.
I like you guys said. I do think that the Black Manta was probably one of the better points of the film. I thought it was tonally, and granted, I also have not seen the film since it originally came out in theaters. That was the first and last time that I watched it. Not because it's like awful, but I felt no reason to revisit it. But I was going to say, I do like the Black Manta character. I felt the film in general just had way too many tonal shifts. Like it's a romance, but it's a Lord of the Rings like epic action where it's like two big armies battling with lobsters on each other and seahorses and stuff. And I was just like,
the fact. Look, I love the end action sequence. We got Aquaman riding a fucking seahorse going into battle. That is a callback to, if I could ever think of one, back to 1960s cartoons. Yep. It's like, yes, you made Aquaman riding a seahorse look badass, and
I guess that's true. Yeah,
I'm for that. I'm all for that.
Yeah. Our co-host this evening, Salty, said, sorry, Chrome froze up and I had to defrag and reboot. This frequently happens with StreamYards. Thanks for having me on the show. Salty, it is my pleasure, dude. I'm so sorry that we didn't get to say thank you properly and to give you a hail for you to head out. But truly, thank you for being on tonight. It was always a pleasure to have you on the show. You always add such insight, and we love your takes here. So thank you again, man. We always find each other whenever it's like Lord of the Rings or fantasy or any of that good stuff. I always love it. So, but yeah, so with this being said, Aquaman 2 may be heading towards a worse box office crash than the Marvels. And you guys already listed out the reasons for why this may be, crashing harder than the Marvels. But could this head to towards bankruptcy, towards financial, bankruptcy, as one analyst claims. Now, I haven't actually looked at this article, but this has been a rumor that's been spreading around Warner Brothers for a little while now. Is there any merit to this? Do you think there's any substance to this claim, or do you think that Warner Brothers is going to be fine?
No, I mean, there's definitely some merit to it. Warner Brothers is struggling. They're in so much debt. They're trying to pay off so much debt, and we already know that they were having to bank. I mean, keep in mind the reason we don't have Aquaman yet was because they pushed it back. I think it was the same with some of the other DC films. They pushed them back because they didn't have the money to market it, so they got shifted into 2023 instead of premiering in 2022. But yeah, I mean, we know that they're suffering financially. We know they're in a lot of debt. We know that they're trying to find ways out of it. And the writer's strike did not help their case at all, because they were looking to have at least some wins. Like Dune was most likely going to be, hopefully, something that would help them recoup some money. It's pushed to next year now. They're not doing. I mean, even you look at what Warner is doing, even with the properties they already have out. They have HBO Max. They're trying or Max now, whatever.
Right.
They have Max, and instead of pushing their own program, they're just giving all their shit to other streaming services to say, "Hey, come license it," like because they need that money.
The weird thing about that, though, is that Max was one of the only streaming services last year that was profitable. So I don't know why they wouldn't want to try and promote Max through that. But yeah, no, it seems like they're in trouble, especially with the the whole, what was it, Batgirl or Batwoman, right? That was the tax write-off.
Batgirl was the tax write-off.
It was Batgirl.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm thinking of the Batwoman show, which should have been a tax write-off, but wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I'm surprised they didn't just do the same for Aquaman, but I know that they have sponsors, they have deals with people, they already have, all these contracts with individuals that they can't probably get out of at this point, that they have to just release whatever they have. But yeah, if that weren't for the case, though, I think Zaslav would have taken Aquaman as another write-off. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Probably at this point, and after all the bad publicity from Amber Heard, which let's be honest, that's been, I mean, cataclysmic. She's been toxic, and I'm sure that's going to be a major factor to people not showing up in the theater. But yeah, you can only accumulate so much debt after so long before, I mean, really, everything comes tumbling down. And I really think Warner Brothers is getting to that point. And we're not going to hear it yet. We're probably not going to hear it for a while, but I really, really, truly think a lot of these films that James Gunn has planned are not going to happen. A lot of these are going to end up getting nixed.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's already been the talk even before Warner started failing worse than we thought they were going to fail. There's already talks of what the plan was and potential sales and dividing the brand up. And I think we need to keep in mind too. I think sometimes we look at bankruptcy as, oh my God, this is the end, and that I don't think that's the case. I don't think bankruptcy would be the end of Warner. I think it would. And it could even be strategic that they even shoot for bankruptcy, that they're like, let's, offload as much of this debt as we can through bankruptcy. Some of the ways we'll do this is we'll sell off these lower brands that we're already wanting to sell anyways, get them out of there, and then they can go from there. But
which could be DC Comics. DC Comics could be one of those brands that they end up selling off.
So,
and I mean, at this point, maybe we want that, because right now DC Comics is in such a bad place that if someone who had a love for it might be running it better, maybe they do a better job of running DC Comics. I don't know, but yeah, the bankruptcy might be more of a restructuring, as opposed to just a complete, oh, it's dead, it's never coming back. Well, it might be a way of just saying,
yeah, like Josh was saying, bankruptcy has such negative connotation, but no, it's like you said, it's more of a restructuring of everything. Getting rid of the excess fat, what's not working, and then just trying to make money in profitable areas. And DC, unfortunately, is probably one of those that is maybe barely profitable. That they may just it's probably, I think it's like accounted for like less than 1%. It's like 1% of the organization for Warner Brothers.
Oh wow!
So they may just decide to nix it. I think it's 1%. I could be wrong, but I know it's a small percentage.
My God. Yeah, that's brutal.
But in terms of James Gunn's DC, there's a part of me that's like, I don't want a lot of these titles to come out, just because of my own cynical nature, because we have seen such poor quality superheroes in the past, probably 5 years or so. I'm hoping that they get shelved and they can come back to them later. But right now, it's I'm not too thrilled to see the Gunverse, whatever you want to call it. It just seems a little too late at this point. So if Warner Bros. Does do a restructuring, I wonder if they will shelve a lot of those projects, and I'm thinking maybe even for the better at that point. But I don't know.
And I think I heard the rumor mill was like that maybe Universal could step in and buy DC or something like that, but that's just a rumor at this point. We'll see what
heard
happens.
it through the grapevine. Yeah.
I need to try to find. There was an article. It came out. If I want to say sometime last year, like it was. I want to say April or May last year. It was either Deadline or Hollywood Reporter. But there were reasons that they were talking about that really kind of lined up with why the selling would take place, who would buy it. Contractually, it can't happen until then. But it was something. It was something along the lines of like one of the CEOs had even mentioned like, yeah, I would be interested in purchasing Warner or DC or whatever. And Zaslav had pretty much said something along the lines of like, I'm okay with starting those conversations now. And that's what really kind of had things going crazy out there. So yeah. And I will say Universal, if you look at it from Universal, I think is Comcast the one that owns Universal? I'm sure it's a whole weird thing going on with Disney,
right?
And all this shit.
Big conglomeration.
But Universal's fighting to take Disney's spot. I mean, they are actively trying to acquire brands that, from a film standpoint, will let them stand out. From a theme park standpoint, they are trying to incorporate and change as much as they can, to the point that Universal is actively putting up competition to Disney as far as the parks go, which has never happened before, because they're catering it to adults and more of an experience as opposed to, I guess, like something strictly for children. So,
well, to kind of wrap up the both conversations about Warner Brothers and Aquaman. Ultimately, I most likely won't be going to see Aquaman. I don't know how it's going to do in theaters. I mean, it made $1 billion the first time around, so I mean, at this point, who knows?
But let's be honest. Let's be honest, real quick. If this does tank, this is just yet another black eye on Warner DC's going forward. Just another one. It doesn't matter if this was dead. It's just this is like the third or fourth one that has been a failure. And it's like, how can Zaslav at this point be like, okay, James, let me see that script again. We're gonna take a look at what you got going on here.
Great point. And I honestly, it's about brand, right? Brand image. When people are going to look at Warner Brothers or DC, the brand image is going to be so tarnished at this point that it's going to be very difficult to dig themselves out of this one, because once you have a negative brand image, it's really tough to get out of that.
Superman will have to be a hit. There's no if this makes less than $1 billion, it is a failure at this point.
It also can't be mediocre. Like, it can't just be. No. It was okay. It was a fine film. It has
needs
to be
a critical and box office hit.
Yeah. It needs to be something that people are going to like, a critically acclaimed, a fan acclaimed. Mm-hmm. It's going to have to, And I don't want to put that type of weight on a film, right? I just want to go in and enjoy it. That's the
position that they're in right now.
But that is where
Warner
and you're
are
absolutely right. That is the position.
Every film the past 2 years now has been a failure. Going as far back as Black Adam, they've all been box office failures. They need a hit, and this has to be it. If not, show may be over.
And to Josh's point earlier about when Zaslav was talking about, he's like, let's have that conversation, right? About selling off IPs. They might just start selling off characters. Oh, you want to do a Batman? Here, do Batman. Pay us. We'll pay us. You take the license,
and then you fund the production costs, you fund all of that stuff, pay us, and we'll just let you do with Batman whatever you want, right? That could be an option in the future. I have no idea, but from what Josh, I think what you were saying earlier is that may be in talks as of now, because Zaslav at this point, this is kind of his last resort. His Hail Mary is just like, listen, our brand is shit. We're not making any money. We got to do something, right? So Salty says, all these corps following the other lemmings off a cliff on the infrastructure and support systems needed for streaming really impacted their ability to be what they were, entertainment companies. Salty, I can't tell you how many times my professors in my business school, getting a master's degree, how many times they talk about the failure of streaming and how so many people just thought, oh, we're just going to follow suit of Netflix, right? Netflix has a great model. Though we will be second to that market, maybe we can build on it. Maybe we can do something better. Maybe we can, and it just never happened. Now they're seeing the results of not being able to be profitable from these streaming services if you can't license these things out. Like Netflix originally did. It had all the Marvel movies. It had all the sitcoms. It had The Office, Parks and Rec, Seinfeld, Friends. Like, it had everything, right? So that's why they were able to make so much money, I think. But I feel like I feel like unfortunately a lot of these streaming services were kind of doomed from the start.
And now Tubi, the streaming service, has a lot of those DC comic films to show. You can watch those for free, but with ads. It's like, I'll gladly watch those.
Interesting. You know what film I would recommend on Tubi that I actually did a project about is Kyle Gallner's The Passenger.
What's
Horrifying.
it called? The Passenger?
The Passenger. So if you're on Tubi and you look at The Passenger, Kyle Gallner, Red Letter Media talked about it. So I would highly encourage The Passenger. Good film.
Oh,
well, Kyle's performance in it is just incredible. So. And he actually spells his name Kyle, not like our friend Kyle, who doesn't spell his name.
Oh, yes, they did talk about this.
Yeah.
Yes.
So go check it out.
Yeah.
Salty also says it will tank 4 reshoots. Ooh, toxic actress. Yep, that was a big point of contention. A meaningless entry into dead end of the Snyderverse. That is what Josh had so had articulated earlier. And something that I keep forgetting is that in the grand scheme of things, this is they're having to release it just because they have it. It has no implication, or it has no furthering of a story into Gunn's verse. And so a lot of people want that continuity. They think it's going to be like a Marvel thing, and it's just not, unfortunately. So, but all that being said, I think we can probably call it an evening. We've talked about some of the best films and some of the worst films tonight. Salty also says, recommended The Spine of Night. If you love dark high fantasy, Bakshi and this was what you were talking about. Okay, cool. The Spine of Night. Sweet, man. I can't wait. Is it kind of like that heavy metal film back in the 80s, 70s, or 80s, the animated film? Do you guys remember what that was called? Well, was it just called Heavy Metal? Okay, yeah.
Probably Heavy Metal you're thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. Someone just mentioned this on Zax's stream Wednesday night. So that's
The Spine of Night.
Yeah, that's twice in 1 week that I've heard.
Ooh, then dang. Oh, okay. Heavy Metal meets Fire and Ice. I love it. Then I definitely have to check it out. Salty, if you are looking for some modern comics, I know I don't recommend a ton, but there is a title coming out called Fire and Ice by Bill Willingham, and it's fairly good. The art is beautiful. It's gorgeous. So I would recommend it. So the Uninspired Reviewer recommended it. Well, thanks, Zax. Is the Uninspired Reviewer like an actual YouTuber?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, nice. Okay. What was the anime that Vex recommended? I want to get on that anime hype train. I will be a weeaboo for life. I love the Vinland Saga manga, or the anime, like Tankobon, I guess you would call it. Frickin' Akira, Trigun, Berserk, Vinland Saga. What else do I have over there?
You got some Bow.
Fist
You
of
have
the North
the
Star,
Guyver.
Blade, all that good stuff. But yeah, I will be a total
Watch the Guyver, man. Watch the Guyver. Buy a booster armor.
MacGyver.
No, the Guyver.
Oh,
the
the
Guyver.
Guyver. Okay, I was like MacGruber, MacGyver.
Yeah. So this was another one that was brought up, Scavenger's Reign. But both of these look really freaking awesome. So gotta check them out.
Sweet, man. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for the recommendations. I believe me, if Hollywood stopped producing things today and they didn't produce anything else for the next 5 years, I would be totally fine. I wouldn't even I wouldn't even be like, oh, they've stopped producing things, because I have decades worth of films and TV shows that I need to watch. So it would almost give me an opportunity to catch
Top
up.
Gun Maverick.
Oh, did I hear that? Something. I think there was something in my ear. That's so weird. Oh well. Whenever I just block that stuff out. Every now and then I hear that and I go,
I don't know
whatever.
How he is toward Top Gun Maverick is how I'm kind of toward the Lord of the Rings films. It's just I love that. It's
just
great.
indifferent. I mean, well, no, because I know that Top Gun is a Top Gun Maverick is a really good film. I even watched a portion of it and I was like, this is great. I just haven't gotten a chance to like actually sit down and watch it.
We really need to start that little like series that I discussed, Cherry Popped, where we all kind of find something that another person hasn't watched. Like, oh, I've not seen this, and then kind of watch it.
I like that. Yeah,
everybody likes to have their cherry popped.
And we can do it multiple times, which normally you can't. So
usually it's just once.
No. So chat, or if you guys are watching this on the replay, let us know in the comment section, what are some things that you have not seen or what are some things that you've seen that you'd recommend that maybe we haven't seen, or what are some things that you haven't seen that you've heard are really good. So because that could be a really fun series, Josh. Cherry Popped. I like it. Well, as always, chat, you guys have been amazing tonight. Thank you so much to all of those who have super chatted. Thank you to all the wonderful panelists tonight. We had Kyle, Salty, Josh, Drew. I couldn't have asked for a better group of guys tonight to talk about something that to me is deeply something that has shaped my life and created an entire legacy of fans and creatives and storytellers. So I'm deeply grateful for these men who were able to join me tonight, and also deeply grateful for the Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King, on this 20th anniversary stream. Thank you guys all for being here. Now let me see. Before I go, Josh, do you have anything coming up Tuesday? Will you be doing anything? Will the holidays be changing your schedule? What is that looking like?
Nope. Tuesday, the plan is to have a stream. I don't have anything planned Tuesday night, family or holiday wise. So we should be live. What are we going to talk about? Fuck if I know. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But
fun. Well, I'll maybe I'll pop my head in if
okay,
because I don't have class.
For that's right. You're not going to be a nerd for like 2 to 3 weeks.
Fucking nerd, get off your computer, nerd. Nerd. Yes. So if you want an extra dumb face on your stream, just let me know. I'll pop in. And then Drew, the next thing you have going on is Friday evening with us, correct? Or are you going to be with Josh on Tuesday?
Oh, hey, maybe with Josh on Tuesday. We'll see. If not Tuesday, then I'll be there on Friday.
We'll text in the group. We'll see what happens.
We'll figure something out. Now, if you guys did not know, or if you guys have chat, if you guys have Friday evening off, or if you are going to be with family, or you're just hanging around the house, myself, Josh, Drew, and Kyle are going to be doing a huge live stream going over the best and the worst comic books of the entire year 2023. And it's going to get wild. It's going to get wild. We have a top 10 worst and a top 10 best. We have some honorable mentions, but we're gonna blaze through these things, and it's gonna be a really, really fun time. Something that you guys will not want to miss, I promise you, because watching it live is going to be a blast to hear what you guys think, to also get your feedback about what your best and the worst comics were of 2023. So we can't wait to see you guys there. I'm very honored to have that panel, and yeah, it's going to be a blast. Josh, do you think you have your list ready? Because I know that Kyle and Drew have gotten theirs already.
I've already started working on my list, trying to figure out, not necessarily the top 10 itself, but how I'm going to rank the top 10. But I'm really curious to see, because, okay, let me put it this way. I think our top 5 are all roughly going to be the same 5 books. So
are they?
Where we put them, four out of the 5, I would say, are probably going to be the same. I'm curious to see where we put them in those top 5. And then I might just come in and troll the fuck out of everybody. So who knows?
My number one best book is Fire and Ice.
Top 5.
Yeah.
Number 1 book of the year, Hot Girl.
Hot Girl. Alan Scott, Green Lantern. Yeah, just like everything you can think of. Yep, we'll put it on there. So, and yes, thank you. If you guys on your way out, if you guys can hit that like button and make sure to put on notifications, because like I said, you guys won't want to miss Friday. I will say that is the hardest part about coming up with the top 10 is where they are ranked. I can always come up with what my top 10 books are, but then ranking them, I'm ranking them like all the way up to the last minute of before we start the stream. The other thing I will say is our worst comic books. I was talking to Kyle last night. I had like 25 that I have to cut down to 10, and he had like 30. So it's gonna be quite something, because there were some books that he was mentioning that I was like, oh my god, I totally forgot about that. So
I've done to a dozen series so far.
Are we doing the series, or I thought for worse we were doing issues?
You can do either one. So
Okay.
if there's an issue that sticks out that's like, this is awful, you can put the issue. If like Hawk Girl, if like Hawk Girl, it's 6 issues that all just are terrible, you can put the series. So like for the best and the worst, if you want to do an issue or a series, you can do either one.
So I will admit I'm struggling with worst, not because there's too many, but because since I'm not having to cover comics, I'll read something that's bad. I'm like, fuck this shit.
That's right. And you picking
that up again.
Yeah.
I was laughing at the comments.
Okay.
Philback put Josh has a good giveaway. And then Salty told me to shut up because I said the Snyder Cut's not a masterpiece. Those aren't my DC characters.
Ooh, hot take. Well, it's not that hot take.
You're good, Salty. I know you. It was in love. Said with love.
Always. But yeah, no, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what your worst of the week is, or what your worst of the year is. But if you need any help or any, kind of nudging you in the right direction, go back and watch some of our live streams, or just go back and look through the League of Comic Geeks and just look through those, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I know exactly which ones I'm going to choose. So. Yes, huge thanks to the man himself, Tolkien, and Peter Jackson, everyone who worked on these movies. That is why we're here tonight. That is why we have the beautiful piece of cinema that we were given 20 years ago on this magnificent day. So thank you to all of those guys. Thank you, chat. Thank you, panelists. Can't wait to see you guys on Friday. Highly looking forward to that stream. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a lot of fun. And it'll kind of lead us into Christmas and then the New Year's. So thank you, Salty, for being here. We will see you guys on Friday, or we'll see you guys on Josh's stream on Tuesday. So reject modernity and embrace your legacy, especially embrace the legacy of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And thank you, hail to those who worked on it. Here's to 20 years of the Lord of the Rings, and here's to 20 more. Amen. We'll see you guys in a few days.